Now, a race needs to have some rules, and one of the big draws, and it has something to do with the accessibility, and it also has something to do where this has come from and the kind of history, even as short as it is where do your rules come from? What structure do they take? And for us, people like the fact that we can print all of the rules on the back of this brevet card. Now, there are some difficulties with that, because people being people often think, well, if it's not printed on this, I can do it. That isn't what this is about. There are kind of two ways, as I see it, of doing this. One is to have all of the rules laid down up front in a huge book, whereby we think of every possibility, everything that can happen, and we give a clause for that, and we give a penalty, we give a consequence for breaking it. We tell you all up front about what's going to happen. There are a couple of things I don't really like about that. It's okay when you're in a controlled environment and you know that the factors aren't going to go into lots of nuance, lots of different circumstances, lots of different situations. You can go through that kind of rather robotic and formulaic process of going, well, you did this, it says this, that's the result. One of the things about unsupported racing that makes it good to watch, that makes it fascinating, that makes it a more believable race, is that there are so many different factors there. And I'm going to say something about how rules can stop cheating and doping and things, or not, or how the race structures sort of make things endemic a little bit later on. But really, the rule book can't capture all of the circumstances in a race like Transcontinental, purely because of the reason that we open so many factors up. What we're doing is we're putting back in all of the variation, all of the adventure, all of the different sets of circumstances. That makes it exciting, and it also makes it very difficult to really understand and predict what everybody's going to do. So we're not on a tennis court, we're not on a football pitch, we're not in a very controlled sporting environment, and we've done that on purpose to throw all of these factors in that's going to complicate things. So those very rigid rule books work quite well when you've got a clearly defined playing field and set of indoor, or a chessboard or something like that. That chessboard is this many wide, and you can be confident that you've captured every rule that could possibly, permutation that could possibly happen, and you've got an eventuality there planned for it, and a circumstance as well. We can't do that on a race that goes across an entire continent, unless we go to the model which is like, have a really big rule book, and you're still not going to capture everything, but what you can do is, if something new arises, you make a judgment, you put it in the rule book, and then you've got a situation whereby you've got your rule book, it's all in a big book, and you've just got to police it. And that's where because you've got so many rules, then you need a lot of people to kind of to be able to police that, and it can get a little bit silly, because you end up with rules being applied to the letter of the law, and then you also open yourselves up to a culture within your event where the rules are policed to the letter of the law. They're not judged upon with a fairness and with a personality and look, this is why I'm doing this, and in the kind of overall bigger picture. Each rule is ruled, you know, you've done this, you've broken this rule, and it can be a very depersonalizing situation. So you end up with police, rules, rule breakers, and loopholes. And then because the racers don't think of the rules as being a person who's managing a fair situation, then they look for gaps in the rules and say, well, if the gap's there, and if it's not explicitly expressed in the rules that I can't do X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, because that rigid and kind of robotic rule structure I can try and work my way. So you get a lot of these activities then that people go, well, it's not strictly against the rules, or so on. And I think that's a bad place to go. And that as well is a symptom of the rules being all legislated for up front and being strict and with black and white, because people will see them and they will see the gaps, and then they'll look for them, and they might decide to go between the gaps. Now, in transcontinental we do things a little bit differently, not least because we have that low entry fee and we have a limited amount of resources. And what resources we need to put in the right places, and we need to look at things which are they actually achievable to do. So putting somebody on every street corner to manage certain things isn't going to work. So some of the things we don't make a rule on because the rule's not policeable. And then there's a lot to be said for a certain amount of the rules being vague and the sense of the rule being conveyed. That's why we go for 6. That's why we go for 10. And we have 6, which is all riders must. We have number 6, which is all riders must maintain evidence of their ride. Which is to say that you have to be able to prove what you did and what you didn't do. And we also have we have a kind of one that sums up, which I believe is one of the most important ones. Ride in the spirit of self-reliant and equal opportunity. And what that does is that sets out what the rules are trying to do, which is saying be fair to each other. Look after yourself, be self-sufficient, and be fair to each other.